Good morning, everyone. For those of you around the corner, feel free to come in, get a coffee. It's so beautiful out here today, and it's so even more beautiful in there today. Good morning, I'm Adam Weinberg, the Alice Pratt Brown Director of the Whitney Museum. Welcome to Jason Moran and the magical world of Jason Moran. Just have to say, going into the space next door is like being in a dream world. It's like being in music and in the head and the mind of Jason Moran as realized by Adrienne Edwards. It's truly extraordinary. We're thrilled to be launching our fall season. This is the first museum show that is devoted to Jason Moran's work, which really has special significance for us at the Whitney. Jason's an artist we deeply admire and have followed and supported, and going back to 2011, when we presented the mid-career survey of Glenn Ligon's work, curated by our chief curator, Scott Rothkopf, Moran created the score for Glenn Ligon's video, The Death of Tom, a recreation of the final scene in Edward S. Porter's silent film, Uncle Tom's Cabin. The following year, Jason and his wife, his frequent artistic partner, Alicia Hall Moran, who is a great artist and performer herself, who works between genres, took part in the 2012 biennial, Whitney Biennial, which I think many of you remember, where the entire fourth floor of the Whitney Museum was wide open as a performing space. And it was called Bleed, and the space was bleeding in the sense that everything just kind of flowed together, which was kind of a kind of foreshadowing, in fact, of the installation here today. And that show had 90 performers in it and included a number of the people actually featured in this show, people like Joan Jonas, Esperanza Spalding, Adam Pendleton, Lorraine O'Grady, Bill Frisell, Rashida Bunbury, and Carol Walker, among many others. This is also a debut, the first major show by Adrienne Edwards here at the Whitney Museum, and we are thrilled. Welcome to Adrienne. Adrienne has moved back to New York. She is now the Engell Speyer family curator and curator of performance here at the Whitney. And what a way, triumphal way to enter New York. We are so thrilled. This show will feature a spectacular range of performances and events. Jason and Adrienne have chosen both renowned and emerging artist ensembles to be featured in the series called Jazz on a High Floor in the Afternoon. And here we are, Jazz at a High Floor in the Morning, which will span 11 weekends. Two events in particular will be unique to the Whitney's presentation. The New York premiere of Carol Walker's steam-powered calliope, Catastrophe Caravan, which was featured in the Prospect in New Orleans in 2017. It's a one-day event. Don't miss it. Once you hear that calliope and the sounds of the calliope, you'll never forget it again. It's on October 12th. There's also a special 20th anniversary concert for Moran's trio, Bandwagon, which will take place in early December. And I'm delighted that Jason will be in the Annenberg lecture on December 16th that we were presenting here at the Whitney. After the show opened at the Walker Arts Center, where Adrienne originally curated it, the show went to the ICA Boston and the Wexner Center of the Arts. We're particularly pleased that it's having its grand finale here at the Whitney, because this is really a homecoming for Jason, who moved to New York when he was 18 years old, and he has called this the city of my dreams, where the music lived every hour of the day. This is the show that culminates in New York, where Jason and so many of his collaborators live and make their work. You know, this exhibition, which features these three major stages, the Savoy Ballroom, Three Deuces, and Slugs, are all about the notion of staging and the relationship between audience and the musicians. As Jason said, the way the stage is built sets up a relationship. Does the audience encircle you? Does the stage look down on its audience? Are you going to play eye to eye? Like music itself, it's about relationships between notes and players. Jason is best known as one of the leading lights of jazz music of our time, but his gifts extend beyond music. His collaborations with prominent visual artists include Stan Douglas, Theaster Gates, Joan Jonas, Glenn Ligon, Julie Mehretu, Lorna Simpson, Carol Walker, and they dissolve the boundaries between all media. The Whitney has a long-standing commitment to performance, even before we had spaces where we could do performance. And in the early 60s, we focused on vanguard jazz. There were musicians like Duke Ellington, U.B. Blake, Ornette Coleman, and Cecil Taylor, who all played at the Whitney in those days. And then in the 70s, we began featuring performance by people like Steve Reich, Philip Glass, Yvonne Rainer, and Trisha Brown. And today, thanks to our wonderful spaces and our wonderful new curator, this place is going to play music and art and dance like never before. So we're grateful to have you all here today. I want to thank the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation for their great support, and Elizabeth Alexander, who has been really supportive of the Whitney for quite some time. I'd like to thank our friends at Steinway, who make the wonderful ghost piano that plays even when no one's there. I'd like to thank our friends at Delta for being longtime supporters and helping to make sure that we can get our performers and other visitors here. And above all, I would like to thank a couple of individuals, Erin and Peter Friedland, Philip and Janice Levin Foundation, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs and the City Council, Chip and Burl Shore, Norm and Melissa Selby, Joyce, and the great George Ween, and additional support by Lisa and Dick Cashin. Thanks to all of them for making this possible. Last but not least, thank you to Adrienne and Jason. This is an incredible duet. Thank you. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Scott Rothkopf, our chief orchestrator. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, good morning, everyone. Jason, I'm going to start out by apologizing to you. I'm not going to talk about you or your work, because I'm just supposed to do the coming attractions for everything that opens tomorrow before you get to your feature film. But I'm so happy that all of you are here on such a beautiful day to celebrate this incredible and beautiful show. This is an amazing time at the Whitney. I mean, literally today, the next week, the next 6 weeks. Our biennial closes on Sunday. And between now and then, there's a lot happening in the biennial. The final performances of Brendan Fernandez's incredible dance piece on the 5th floor. Madeline Hollander on Thursday is going to do a performance involving our flood mitigation system. I look forward to seeing this. And Skyho Pinka this weekend will be presenting a film screening about his sort of Native American colleagues and friends from the indigenous community and the work that they've done in film and video. So I hope all of you will come again and again and again. And just after that, we are looking at an incredible season at the Whitney that's really focused on the work of living artists. We have in our lobby a great new commissioned work by Pope L, which is part of a trio of exhibitions happening around New York right now. The Public Art Fund on the 21st will do a crawl in downtown New York with Pope L and various volunteers. If you would like to crawl on the street, you may still have that opportunity. MoMA will be presenting as part of their new opening exhibition, look at a recent acquisition of historical material, and we will premiere a very ambitious new sculpture of a fountain that we hope does not flood our lobby. So come back to see that. Then in October, we will also, after Popel, presenting a major retrospective of the work of Rachel Harrison. And Rachel has really conceived of this show almost like a new work of art, filling the entire 5th floor of the museum with pieces from the last 20, 25 years, but in an installation that I think will be extremely impressive to everyone who sees it and kind of really show off what this building can be for artists. And lastly, on the 6th floor in November, we are doing a very ambitious reinstallation of our permanent collection from 1950 to the present through the lens of craft, which is the idea of artists in our collection and part of the history of modern art who have really thought about craft materials like ceramic, glass, even sequins, as well as craft making strategies and techniques within their work, from Robert Rauschenberg to Simone Lee. So this is going to be a great chance to see many pieces from our collection that have not been exhibited in decades, if ever, as well as some new acquisitions, and we're just thrilled about that. And as Adam mentioned, we'll be having performances not every week, but quite frequently in and around Jason's show, so I'm sure he and Adrienne are going to talk about that. But before I hand the floor to Adrienne and Jason, I do want to echo what Adam said about this being Adrienne's first major show at the museum. She did do a project with Wu Sang and Boy Child, Moved by the Motion already, so technically speaking, this is her second show, but I remember very shortly after she began at the Whitney, maybe even like a week or so, I thought I better go see her opening at the Walker, because I knew Jason a little bit from when he played live for Glenn's film at the Whitney, as Adam mentioned. And I got to the Walker, and I should have realized I was not going to be the most popular person in the room, having recently recruited Adrienne to leave the Walker and come to the Whitney. But I was so impressed by this show, I thought the one peace offering I could do is say, hey guys, we got to bring this to New York. And everyone at the Walker, I believe, was thrilled about that, to see this show travel. So I do want to acknowledge all the work that they put in to initiating an exhibition that is so ambitious, so kind of boundary breaking. And really want to thank Jason for the spirit that he brought to reconfiguring this place, this piece for this place, to make it the special homecoming that Adam mentioned. So with that, I want to introduce Jason and Adrienne. First Adrienne and then Jason. But maybe you can come stand together and not hide behind the door. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam and Scott. That's incredibly generous and thoughtful of you. I was thinking about the two of you a lot last night and this morning, and I just want to genuinely say thank you. There were many, many opportunities where you could have said no, and you didn't. And I'm ever grateful to you. Shows like this happen because of visionary leadership and support, honestly. And when your leaders get it, you get to fly. So we got to fly because of you. So thank you. Alicia Hall Moran, Jason's partner in life and art, gave me a gift very early on in our process of working together, which is, by the time this show closes, will be almost 4 years that we've been on this journey. And she said, when I was dating Jason, he told me, don't listen to what I say, listen to what I mean. That saying is, don't listen to the words that I say to you, right? That thing that's so legible and clear and we think is clear, but listen to the intention behind it. And I think that has stayed with me because when Jason said to me, again, very early on in this process, we have to let the music lead, I was like, but what does he mean we have to make an exhibition? How's the music gonna lead in an exhibition? And what he meant was allow the complexities, the varieties, the thing and the way it does what it does in his music be the heart of this show. And so I think its complexity, its polyvocality, its multiplicities are really reflective of the music that I listen to so much from you, Jason. And of course, this show also has Jason's works that are visual artworks, and it's really gratifying. I've seen your drawing practice evolve in such incredible ways since we've been working together, and I think the organization of the wall that you encounter as you come into the show really tries to illustrate that. And your incredibly haunting homages to jazz venues in New York City, which really also anchor this exhibition, are riveting and moving and mystifying. So thank you. And then there is this incredible thing that you do that I've had the pleasure of being in the cipher of, and I think this show is a bit like a cipher, and we try to make it feel that way. Something's going on in there. And that is your collaborations with artists who have really changed the contemporary art landscape in the last 15 years. So what you get in this show is not only like a constellation of relationships and creativity that are unlikely and surprising for many, but that's very Jason. You also get an arc of American music, which is to say Black music in this country. And I'm just very, very proud of that and ever grateful to you for your work, Jason, and your partnership and friendship. Thank you.
Thank you. I rode the train down today, and in reading the paper that comes when you buy, well, actually you don't have to buy the paper, you pick up the paper. Like one of the articles in it was about destroying a landmark, a building in New York City like 33rd and 6th Avenue that has landmark status that is now slated because the developer says, oh, we should tear this down now. And part of the exhibition is around what deems itself a landmark, and whose landmark is it? And in jazz, an often thing brought up about what we love about jazz, but maybe we don't listen to it, is people like to remark about the metaphors that jazz brings, the obvious complexities, the inability to follow just one strand at a time. You have to be focusing on many voices, and the voices have to come together, but you have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to the music. And so then where do you play this? Where does that happen? You can do it in your practice room or you can do it in your basement, but who are the places that open the doors for the music to have the space? And in New York City, for a very long time, we have had many spaces that have led to this kind of exploration from a very humble vantage point. Those clubs are my total love for the musicians who played in those spaces, but it's not simply the musicians that are part of that equation. It's someone also, it's another economy, it's an underground economy, it's a dark economy. But then somehow, the music then becomes the currency that people need, but you can't put necessarily a price on it. So Savoy Ballroom, the 1920s, dancers totally inventing Uptown in Harlem to Midtown to where the Three Deuces was, on 52nd Street, totally inventing in a basement, with a padded wall, to downtown, the Lower East Side in the 60s and 70s, totally inventing in a dangerous neighborhood where the guy at the door has a chain, and if he doesn't like you, he will hit you in the mouth with the chain. That's the bouncer at Slugs. And so those are places, and the place I play is the Village Vanguard, very close to here. Been there almost 84 years now. It's a treasure to the city for what it represents. Its humble space becomes then the treasure. Cecil Taylor's version of what he called the basement, we turned the basement into a citadel. That's what he told Glenn Ligon and myself. So this exhibition, I really thank Adrienne for really pushing on the wall of what jazz represents, because often we think it's just about sound or just trying to screw you up, listeners. But it really is so much more, and so many people depend on how that music works and what it stands for in a country that tells you you cannot do that. And these musicians found that. All of the collaborators in the exhibition really are as important as any band member I would ever play with. Joan Jonas and Adrienne Piper changed my life. When my mother died, I met them. I met those two women. They changed my life. They gave me more intention. They were the ones that gave me the vitamins and said, well, push more, or that doesn't make sense, or I need more. And then it was all the other collaborators that came after that. But all of this about what we expect with institutions like this is a way to find out of the mess that we continue to be in. And in any band, that's how it works. So this exhibition is only a proposition, and you have to play the rest of the song, though. And it might sound terrible, but that's actually where I start from. I start from places where it definitely is not sorted out, it definitely is not clean, but somehow we find a way to make form of it all. I'm really grateful to the Whitney for all the years that I've been in New York City as the place where I could go see work that challenged everything that I thought about what the institution could be and how I could see myself on the wall and in the galleries. It's a place that's special for me because of the exhibitions I saw when I was in college. Even Adam Weinberg's brother had a club called The Cooler right down here in the meatpacking district. I didn't know that till yesterday. My last story is I love this music and places so much that when I was in college, I went to The Cooler to see a band. It was Dewey Redman and Leroy Jenkins in a double bill. I walked from uptown to downtown with one token and $8. I gave the $8 at the door, and they said, well, you have to have a drink minimum. That's what clubs do, jazz clubs do. They do this thing, drink minimum shit. I said, well, I'll have only a token to get home. I cannot buy any drinks. He said, well, come in. I bootlegged the show. I went to the train afterwards. I took my token, and I got back uptown to Manhattan School of Music, and I just listened to that tape over and over again. Things that happen in these spaces become then the rest of your life. They don't end after you leave. So I'm thankful that for the next 3 months, people will wander in here confused. They will retreat from the light into the darkness, and they will revel in the ghosts that have lived in these places and on those stages, and for the musicians that populate this city and play every night that this city is here. But I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. That was remarkable. I'm glad we have a tape running. We're going to bootleg your speech. So just kidding. We'll get your permission. I want to invite everyone now to join us back in the galleries to enjoy the show, and Jason and Adrienne will be here if you have any questions that you'd like to ask. Thank you so much.